Alright guys, I'm just going to take a sort of 10 minutes out and just quickly go over the silicone head pike flies that I've been posting, as quite a lot of you have asked what the score is with them. So I'm just going to start filming and I'll natter on. When I post, you obviously can ask questions and whatnot, but hopefully this should give you an idea of what I do, right? So basically, hooks in the vise already, and that's glued up and already whipped on some 100 denier thread. You start off with getting like a base colour of bucktail to create the first bit of the bulk. So get an average size pinch of bucktail. Pull the short hairs out. Now this stack of bucktail is to only be on the top of the shank, not to wrap around. So I pinch it on the spot, a few wraps, and then pinch high and tight, and then pull down. Run the thread through the butts. As you can see now, the majority of the bucktail is above. So just get the thread and wrap it around the back of the bucktail. Pull forwards and then another wrap. Now all the bucktails are on top. Cut off the butt ends, because you don't need those. Splash of glue. And this is for pike, so do like a bit of glue on there. Just stops them from being pulled apart. Now basically, I'm now going to continue with the wing stacks. So I've already pre-blended my fibre and my Magnum flasher bow. So I'll start off with the smallest portion. I'd probably say 70-30 or thereabouts. Shortest portion lied on top. What we'll do is then cinch that down nice and tight. A few nice securing wraps. And get the remainder and fold it back, giving it a bit of a splay out. And then lock that into place. And that being a synthetic, it can be quite slippery. There's your first tail stack. Glue. Come forward a touch. Just give it a second to dry. You can breathe on it. The moisture in your breath will make the glue dry quicker. So it's tacky. And then I get another stack, very similar. A small pinch of fibres, and again, shortest portion backwards. Push that down nice and tight. fold that wing back over. Lock it in. Roll the super glue. Again, a bit of breath on that to make sure that it's nice and dry and not too tacky. And then on swappy colours, slightly darker now, like a browny orange. And this is now blended with standard flash, not Magnum. And this is tied in at about 50-50. Over. So it can be quite slippery, so you've got to catch it like that. Turn it over. And now our first belly stack of black. This is just plain, nothing in it. Tapered. On the belly. Push that in. Splay that out. Fold that over. And lock it in. A little bit slipped out there. Roll the super glue. Now, in this portion, I get one of my favourite products, the Pike Fly. And we'll go with some choices. We're going to go with the good old peacock. Pull a good old wad out. And just veil that round that wet glue. Loosely wrap it. And fold it all back. Now, our final stack, again a sparse full length black with black standard flash in. Again, about 50-50. Give it a good spin on the thread, wrap it over, pinch it behind the eye. Take that off. Just reseat the thread back on. Said 50-50. Now, I'll fold that back over in a minute. I'm now going to add one more belly stack in, and this can be the black. More fibre, small amount, only a tiny little wispy amount. Cut it off the hank, fold it in half. Just neaten up the ends. Bit of taper. Now again on the belly, 50-50. Spray that out. Lift the top section up. Splay it out. Bring the thread back around in the front. And then with your thumb, squash down the lower half. Now you have all that pointing the same way. And now we just get some securing wraps on the head. Around the eye of the hook. And a bit like when you're building a dam on front of bucktail. That gives you that really nice bait fish profile. Get a clip. Just a hair clip. Now this just holds everything back out the way. Super glue on the thread. Just to kind of do an inch and a half of the thread with the super glue. Back and wrap. Finish tool. Tend to whip fish twice, pull it in nice and tight, and cut off. Now, I'll take it out of the vise. As you can see, it's quite a nice profile. Take just a normal bloke's comb. Now this is going to be out of the camera, but I sit it on my leg and I take the thick end of the comb, not the skinny end, the thick end, and I just brush through the fly. And what this does is blends everything through nicely and evenly. Now there's nothing to that. I mean, as you can see, there's nothing to it. That's a really nice bait fish profile. Little wispy ends here. Back in the vise. Now, get your hair clip again. Pull everything back. Hair clip on. I'm going to glue the eyes on now. So one of the important bits is your choice of glue. There's loads of different types of glues, resins. I find this UHU Power spot on. Put onto it by David Warren. It just works so well. So turn the fire over to its side. Find the eyes that you want. Some little 8mm. I stick them on the back in the thumb. Somewhere to keep them. Now, just get a tiny little splodge, just sort of 10mm back from the eye. You don't want loads on there. Enough just to soak in. And the same again, trying to remember to keep them even. And then pop your eyes on. Now this being like almost a rubberized glue, you have a bit of play time with this. Enables you to get it right. Just tap the eyes into the glue. And now basically I look on the end of the fly, make sure that they're nice and straight and where I want them. Same sort of distance. Right, just for a minute, now this is the boring bit, and while this dries slightly, I'm going to talk to you a little bit about why I use silicone flies. In fact, I'll just go and get you one, bear with. Nuclear, rhubarb and custard. Now, let's talk to you a little bit about why I use the silicone. So, basically, I've covered the whole head of that fly, as you can see there, as the light catches it, with 2 layers of silicone. And I use, bear with, CT1. And what this does, creates a nice slick profile for that fly to glide through the water. Also, inside there is an empty cavity at the back end of that fly, with an empty cavity, and that keeps the air in. So when you get this down on an intermediate line, this floats down and will suspend and hover in the flow. You can get an absolutely killer hang time on these. That being a fairly big fly, you could tie these with a wiggle tail if you wanted to, but I like to keep them as a straight bait fish. Now what you can do is, now depending on how you sculpt the head, whether you do them like high and narrow, so it like cuts and it will then fish like a jerk bait, or like this one, they can be fairly round, and that gives you almost like a boothhead. So when you pull it through, it's got this kind of really erratic, searching wiggle action. And for me, personally, on that suspended hang time, absolutely killer. And people think, oh God, they're going to be heavy to cast, but as you can see, apart from this slight wing, there's nothing in them. They're just completely hollow. So they actually weigh fuck all. They cast really well. And that CT1 is bulletproof. You catch loads and loads of pike on them. And they don't really fall apart. I've only had a couple times where the eyes have come off, but it being silicone, you can glue the eyes back on. So there's a little bit as to reasons why I use this for these profiles. And as you can see, massive profile, but nothing that's hollow. It's all false profile, false bulk as they say, and that is what attracts the fish. Right, so these eyes will be all right now. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take the clip off. I'm going to clamp the fly again behind the hook. We're going to splodge on our first bit of CT1. Now I'm only going to do 1 coat today, purely because it takes a fair while for this to dry and set up. But within the first coat, hopefully, you guys will get the idea of how to shape the profile. And once you've got this first profile in, you'll just do it exactly the same for the second profile. So I splodge a little bit out on some card next to me, just so there isn't any like half set silicone in the gum. And now I splodge this onto the head zigzagging it as I go, and you'll see this as I turn around the camera. Ensuring that the fly has good coverage of silicone. So that's got a really good coverage there. And the key is a wet finger. Get really nice and wet, and we're patting that down. And now the wet finger stops it from overly sticking. Got a towel on my leg. Overly sticking, creating too much mess. And what I'm doing now is I'm just loosely padding that around the fly. And now you can start to now drag your finger back the head. Just a little bit at a time. And as you're doing this, you kind of keep an eye on where silicone is. On the underside, be careful you don't jab yourself with the hook. You can get this in all the little nooks and crannies. Now I wet my finger even more. And now I drag that back to smooth it over. And you want that fly to be fairly well covered. Not, doesn't have to be perfect, because remember, you are having a second coat. Make sure you don't move your eyes. And just around the eye of the hook, bit of a tidy up. And the key is to keep your finger wet, because that's what gives it the nice sleek profile. It has to have fairly neat profile, because any fly angler that says they don't care what the fly is like, they're lying. It's got to look fairly cool. Now, pull it out of the clip. You can now tug it around a bit, give it that profile that you want. I'm just clearing up around the eye now. And what I'll do is, as it's still wet, I will take it out of the vise now and just show you in front of the camera. But obviously bear in mind, this is still really wet. And there it is. That's the forming of the head. This will get everywhere, so either an apron or some tissue around. And what we'll do is we'll just pinch this fly out. I'll just show it a bit closer. Well, obviously I wouldn't take this out of the vise at all until it's dry. There we go. first coat. Also on the second coat, what you can do is you can really refine and neaten that head up. I know it's a bit hard, but that's a really nice profile. Again, nothing inside. And as that cures, it takes about 30 minutes, and then it becomes nice and tacky. And what I can do then is I can then go back on, add another large layer of silicone all the way around, and then meticulously then smooth that back with a wet finger and create that profile even more, but create that super slick, as you'll see in this one, that super nice slick profile. Gives it that beautiful, beautiful action. Obviously you could add rattle to this. I'm going to put some tissue behind it now so you can see, just aim it right at the camera. Put some tissue behind it so you can see, give you an idea of the exact profile of that fly. It's nice, eh? Proven killer. And just for the reference, the hook is an Arex XO773. I'll see if I can find a packet for you to show you. Probably not. No. But anyway, yeah, XO773. Absolute killer. So, anyway, that's all I can really do now until it dries. Hope you like, and I'll put some pictures up when this one's finished, and we'll go from there. As I said, any questions, just give me a shout, and happy tying.